minimum period of 6 months. In accordance with Council policy, I will now ask staff to confirm that the recording has commenced.
Yes, it has, ma'am.
Thank you. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the South East Nation, the Malakadi people of the Yuin River and the Lilaquani people of the Far South. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. We recognise that we have much to learn from Aboriginal people today who respect the world's oldest continued living culture. We pay our respect to their elders past, present and emerging. So in attendance tonight we have Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Jessup, Councillor Camber-Smith and Councillor Temby. General Manager, would you like to introduce your staff, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We've got the Director Governance and Strategy and Sustainable Development, Matthew Grimsey, the Director People and Corporate Services, David Spinks, Director Infrastructure, Climate and Environmental Services, Lockie Krantz, Acting Director Community Wellbeing Services, Lyle Ground, our Media and Comms Coordinator, Kelly Davis, and Executive Assistant, Sandy Rustell.
Thank you. 2.1 apologies. We have an apology tonight from Andrew Burgess. Leave of absence, nil. Absent, nil. Do we have any councillors to declare an interest tonight on the agenda? No. Thank you. 4.002/22. Do I have a councillor to move the minutes are confirmed for the ordinary meeting of council of Wednesday the 25th of January 2023? Councillor Gibson, do I have a seconder? Councillor Thorpe. Do any councillors wish to report any changes? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors and the motion is carried. 5.001/23. Are there any legislative items, General Manager?
No, Mayor.
6.002/23. Are there any urgent matters tonight?
No, Mayor.
Announcements. Do any councillors have any announcements tonight? Yes, Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make two congratulation announcements to people in our community. First to Will and Owen Lovell, residents of Franklin, who recently represented Australia in New Zealand as the Tokoroa Axemen's Carnival as the only Tasmanian participants in the Australian under-21 team. I think it's important to say congratulations to them because that sport plays a part in the great culture of the Huon Valley. Yeah. And also to AquaClean, a local business that was recently recognised as the Tasmanian recipient in the Telstra Best of Business Awards, with citing that we have a business in the Huon that's leading the way in sustainability, being recognised on an international level, which I think is really fantastic. So just wanted to say congratulations to those two topics.
Thank you. I was speaking to them this afternoon. Yeah, so they will appreciate that. I have a couple of announcements. I chaired the Emergency Management Committee yesterday and I was very impressed to hear Miriam, the regional planner from SES, compliment the council for incorporating all the current changes into the Municipal Emergency Management Plan. Acting Director of Community Services, please pass on my thanks to all the relevant officers. And I'd also like to announce that, that I'll be attending, along with the General Manager, the launch of the Regional Development Australia Strategic Planning for Tasmania. This is an initiative of the Australian Government to encourage partnerships of all levels of government. So we'll report back on that. Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. Today I attended an emergency management meeting with SES Fire and Police, specifically focused on the needs of people with a disability to be supported during emergencies. People with a disability have increased risks, increased response to hazards, quite likely increased exposure through not being able to remove themselves, and also greater vulnerability to disasters when they happen. the concern for people with a disability is that emergency organisations are not always able to know where they are and what their needs are. So the discussion was around how the disability sector can support those organisations. Two interesting notes for the Huon fire and flood were seen as major concerns for the emergency services in the Huon, and they did give me a nice the Geeveston Community Flood Guide, which I'm running courier for Rebecca Bell, there for Rebecca. Rebecca was also at the meeting online. But the second point also, I suppose, is the emphasis from those organisations on the important role that local government needs to play and is almost expected to play, not only in post-disaster response like we had here with our emergency centres, but also in starting to prepare our communities, and especially in the context of this, people with a disability, for what is their personal disaster plans, and no doubt we'll be asked to do more work in that area over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Temby.
Thank you, Mary. Just following on Councillor Jessop's comments, I spoke to Taswater last year at the Commandy meeting about the question of keeping our fire hydrants clear, and followed up again this year, and apparently they're looking into the particular one that I was pointing out opposite 190 North Huon Road. And also I provided them with a media release about how they actually look at servicing all of the fire hydrants throughout the north of the state, and they're going to come back to me with a date as to when they're going to look at the south of the state as well.
Okay.
Also, I just wanted to say thank you to Primary Health Tasmania and Health Connect for briefing me on their research. They've conducted extensive research, and I think there's a lot of progress to be made, and I'd like to thank the local resident, Matt Wills, who's from the Commonwealth Department of Health, and his contribution to our plans. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been doing quite a bit on waste and local resiliency over the previous months. Last night attended an extremely interesting and insightful presentation by Leah Galvin, who was a Churchill Fellowship winner and instrumental in getting the funding initially for the food hub, talking about how local food growers can work with institutions to supply their massive food needs. It's very linked with the work that we're doing within the food hub in terms of building, local resiliency. And earlier in the month, I went down to Gecko to talk with Milta about her moving to zero waste, which was also very fascinating. It'd be nice to see that sort of thing rolled out. Should resources ever permit, through other townships, and also have spoken to Senator Brown and other politicians with respect to transport and integrated transport for the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Gibson.
Yes, on the 21st I attended the workshop for the food hub down, and that was very instructive and constructive. It was a really good turnout. A lot of talk about equity and health benefits, community cohesion, and and resilience. So yeah, it's good work being done in that area.
Thank you. All right. Okay, we might move on. 8.1, public question time. As previously mentioned, the questions taken on notice and the responses can be found on the website and will be included in the minutes. So, 8.1.2, questions on notice. There was no. questions without notice, 8.1.3. Yeah, if they'll be on our website, the answers to those questions. From the gallery, as usual, please state your name and then straight to your question, and then we can get definitely through more that way. So, if anyone like to ask a question? Yep, no problems.
Bear with me with the glasses and all.
Yep, just
So
wait a
my
moment.
name's
Well,
Odette
yep,
So,
yeah, you're right. There we go.
my
Thank you.
microphone management skills are not great. My name's Odette Lenane. I'm from down at Hastings, and I have a question in relation to the Dover Medical Centre.
Yes.
For the Mayor, and Lyle is here. Lyle Brown is here too, so it relates to Lyle. So will the Mayor please explain why the Huon Valley Council, in their letter last week to the Southern Huon Community Health Association, written by Lyle Brown, stated that there would be no shortfall in the Dover Medical Centre project, despite there being a 23.7% increase in construction costs in Tasmania in just the past 12 months, and the project having been delayed by Huon Valley Council for up to 3 years now.
No problems. Through you, General Manager, can I go through to the Acting Director? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, in my response, I said I don't foresee there being a impact on the budget, and the reason for that is that the QS of the job included a significant amount of contingency to factor in the impacts that changes in building rates and whatnot would have on that project. So that's the basis of that. It's also informed by the discussions that we've had with some of the potential contractors through our direct negotiations.
Thank you. Okay, do we have another person to... yes, you may.
Excuse me while I switch that off. Hi, can you everyone hear me?
Yep.
My name's Mervyn Brooker, resident of Dover. I personally have had several meetings with the council over the past couple of years in regards to getting the footpath extended from Craig Mostyn's seafood factory up to John Casey Oval in the south of Dover. At the time, Peter Gutwin gave us a promise that he would foot half the funds and council would foot the other half of the funds. From what I can gather, nothing's still being done. I actually spoke to the Premier's office this morning and asked if the funding was still going to be made available, bearing in mind we have now got a new Premier, and they said yes it was. So my question is what action has been done by Huon Council to proceed with the project? A, have you initiated any meetings with the Premier's office in regards to this? And how have you prioritised this project, allowing for the next financial year?
Okay, thank you very much. Can I pass that on to yourself, or? Yep.
Yeah, look, thank you for the question. And as we've had discussions in the past with the community down there, we haven't prioritised the footpath.
You haven't?
No.
Okay.
So I don't believe it's in our asset management plan, looking at our infrastructure director over there. So we'll obviously bring that into consideration, but largely with a deficit financial position and that being a new piece of infrastructure, we would need to work out how we were going to fund that ongoing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, do I have another question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name's Diana Leader from Dover, and I have a question that's in two parts, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine.
So the first part is, when will work commence on the Dover Medical Centre upgrade?
Yep.
And
Yes.
the second part is, will council be including a provisional sum in its 2023-24 capital works budget in case there is a cost overrun on the existing budget for the Dover Medical Centre?
Okay, thank you. Do I go through to? Yep, thank you.
Thank you. So just to give a short update on where we're at. So the tender closed on the 24th of January. We opened the tender box. There were no formal tenders received. That same day we wrote a report to council. That report to council asked for permission to do direct negotiations. That was endorsed by council, and we've since started that process, and I'm positive with the negotiations so far. At this stage, we're looking to get quotes, formal quotes, from a number of contractors. Early to mid-March is the time frame we're working to. So there's obviously then a process after that in terms of assessment and appointment, but at this stage I can give you that firm date. Let's say the middle of March will be the firm date for at least for quotes on that. Then to answer the second question it's sort of related to the question I answered previously. The QS had a significant amount of contingency included in it, and that is to factor in those changes and those unforeseen circumstances.
Thank you. Do I have another question from the gallery? Yes, Dr. Smith.
Thank you. Yes. First, I want to say thank you for the summary of the Council's climate change actions and budget allocations in the attachments for tonight's meeting. The budget allocations are not accurately specified for 22-23, but will no doubt be reported at the end of the financial year, and relevant budget allocations will be made in the budget for 23-24. In accordance with the Climate Change Emergency Declaration motion at the January meeting. It seems that the policy on prioritising lower emission intensity vehicles was updated in 2021. However, there's still only one electric vehicle in the Council's fleet, and it's not clear whether it's extensively used and monitored to determine whether it is reducing overall transport emissions. Also, the Council had a home energy audit toolkit available in 2021 for loaning to Community for Home Auditing, and it's reported as having been promoted, but it's only been borrowed once. Clearly, these are two examples of actions that could be quantified and could provide examples of how the Council makes a difference to the emissions of both Council and residents. So my relevant questions are: who uses the electric vehicle? What distance has it travelled? And what are the emission savings? And with regard to the home energy audit toolkit, it's been promoted, and will this be done more effectively following the Council's declaration of a climate emergency? And also, why is external funding being sought for such a low-cost item as the Home Energy Audit Toolkit, and will it be funded by the Council in the 23-24 budget?
Thank you very much for those questions, Dr. Smith. I pass over to the Director, if I may.
Thanks for the question, Dr. Smith. Firstly, the electric vehicle is a pool vehicle, so it's available to all staff. It's part of our general booking system. It's extensively used. All of our vehicles are extensively used. I don't know off the top of my head what the kilometres, etc. are. I'll take that component on notice, and we can easily report that and provide its emission savings relative to a Ford Ranger, which is the other kind of primary alternative in our fleet. The second part of your question, which now escapes me, I'm sorry. I think
it's about the home audit.
The home, yeah.
Yes, so you will know how far the vehicle has travelled and what emission savings
yeah, of course.
Yes.
So I can easily take that on notice and come back to you. That's no problem.
The Home Energy Audit Toolkit.
The Home Energy Audit Toolkit, from my understanding, it was promoted back when this plan was first put into place.
Yeah, 2021.
In 2021, it wasn't well utilised. It had one recipient take up that opportunity.
Yep.
Frankly, I haven't been exploring further opportunity for it. just simply as a matter of priority and time.
Yeah.
We will be doing that because we're now looking through in the mitigation and trying to, in keeping with the declaration of a climate emergency, this is coming back to the fore. Will hopefully be attended by a staff member properly, and that person can then progress all of these types of initiatives.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the gallery? Yes, Amy?
Thanks, Mayor. Amy Robertson, Port Huon. I'm familiar with the road standard specifications from the State's Forest Practices system, but I wonder what system is used to set standards for construction of roads within council's estate. Further, what proportion of council roads meet these standards, and how may residents identify expectations of the standard intended for various roads in the Huon Valley?
Thank you. I'll pass that on to the Director, if I may.
Yep, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Amy. It's a complex answer. The Tasmanian Standard Designs set the standard for new construction. So when you referred to estates, so for new construction of a housing development, for example, there's Tasmanian Standard Designs that are adopted by all councils. Some councils have some variations to those. That's a standard that's been put together by the Local Government Association of Tasmania on behalf of all councils and in keeping with the IPWEA, who are engineering practitioners Australia-wide. So that sets a standard for new stuff. As regards to existing roads in the Huon Valley, many, few, if any, have been constructed to anything like a modern standard. And to reconstruct them to a modern standard, if that's where the question is, would be a significant piece of work. Council is not obliged to reconstruct them, nor do we have the money to do that. We're in a state of maintaining and trying to improve them where necessary and according to priority. Does that answer the question, I hope?
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other questions from the gallery? Yes, Amy? How are we going for time? Sandy? Good on you. Well done.
Amy Robertson, Port Huon again. I might follow on from that by requesting perhaps in the response in the minutes a link to those specifications.
The Tasmanian Standard Designs?
Yes,
Yep.
yes. And whether, so the second follow-on question is whether council identifies any particular standard for each road within its estate. Is there a systematic approach to identification of road quality specifications for each road within council's estate? Is there a system, and if so, what is it?
Thank you. Is that an easy one, or do we'll take that?
Yeah, I'll take it on notice. I'll get in touch with you tomorrow just to clarify some points so that we can get clear what you're asking for, and I'm happy to give you. There's road classifications, there's all sorts of stuff we use.
Okay. Yes. You may. You can get one in, Murph. Yes.
Just a query about the tender process for the medical centre.
Yes.
I was led to believe, I understand, it was sent out on the 23rd of December.
Yes, that's correct.
And was for 3 weeks in January.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that right? Most commercial builders shut down for that period, so no one would have been able to tender it. I actually know someone that's on the tender list, and he said, I was away for nearly a month. He's only just come back. So he's happy to put his hat in the ring, but he said, look, it was the way it was set out was because you need a commercial builder, not a house builder.
That's correct.
So, and he's done lots of commercial work with Hutchinson's and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just the way it was set out, and no one could tender it.
I'll give you, there was
Yes.
an answer for that, I think, at our last council meeting. But through you, General Manager, can I get the Director to Is that okay? Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks
Yep.
for the question. Yeah, look, end of the year is not an ideal time to tender it. It was trying to get it out with the urgency. It had been on the cards for a long while. We did promote it to builders that we use, and it went through Tenderlink. We had 10 downloads, so people actually engaged with it, and we had hundreds of views. So people certainly saw it, despite that inopportune period of time. Look, ideally we wouldn't have been, doing it over the Christmas period. The decision was made to do it then and extend it into the January period, certainly when most businesses were back at work, and the follow-up consultation we've done with builders to understand why didn't you tender, why did you looked at it and pulled out. None of them have raised that it was a Christmas break issue. It's different issues largely related to the location. Dover's remote, and there's a lot of building work on.
Okay.
Well, this guy's in Franklin, so he said he was happy to look at it about him.
Okay.
Thank you, Merv. Thank you very much. Okay. That's the end of public question time. We're on to 8.2, deputation addresses to council. Was Neil?
Neil.
Petitions? Neil?
And Neil.
10. I now advise that the council is acting as a planning authority as at, in accordance with the provisions of Part 2 Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015, the council will now act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. In accordance with Regulation 25, the council will act as a planning authority in respect to the matters appearing under item 10 on the agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. So, agenda number 10.004/23, planning application DA 317/2022, dwelling, ancillary dwelling, 2 outbuildings and change of use of existing dwelling to visitor accommodation use at 3480 Ewan Highway, Franklin, CT 27367-2. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move this motion? Councillor Armstrong. Do I have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to speak to the motion? Okay. Do I have any other queries or questions? Yes, councillor.
That's all right.
Yes.
Through you to the director, just a question about the Part 5 agreement, and just confirming that that would stop further subdivision of the property.
So just to provide some clarity, the Part 5 agreement won't stop subdivision. It also won't allow subdivision. So effectively, the zone prohibits subdivision.
So it won't mention subdivision?
It won't mention subdivision. It's purely ensuring that the change of the existing dwelling into visitor accommodation
is for that purpose?
Yes, yes. If they try and change it back, they create multiple dwellings, which is prohibited use.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, councillor Cam Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do have a few concerns about this particular application with respect to the discretions that we're being asked to exercise.
Have you got your... Yep.
I have,
Yep.
yes.
Do you want to move it?
Maybe
just
I'm not
yeah.
talking loudly
Yeah,
enough,
that's
okay?
it. Yep.
The actual footprint of all the additional buildings plus the existing dwelling is extremely large, and the way it's situated, despite the proposal that there is sufficient room left for a vineyard, it does effectively make over a third of the land sort of unsuitable for agricultural use, and we do have to be concerned about the fact we shouldn't be fettering land that could be used for agricultural use. I do have concerns about landslip, but I understand that that's not something we can look at as a part because it's in a low landslip hazard area. The triple garage is only 7.5 metres from the boundary, so that's well below the actual setback requirement for rural resource. And there seems no reason why that shouldn't comply with the setback reasons, because it's a big enough block. And there will be undoubtedly intensification of the access, which is already a sort of shared access at the outlet onto the Huon Highway. So I think those three particular things are things that maybe as councillors we should be considering over whether we accept or refuse this application.
Okay, thank you. Through you, do you would like to write a reply of that one to you, or no?
No, there's nothing to reply on that.
No. Okay. All right. Yes, Councillor Temby.
Thanks. So the actual construction of a single dwelling, how does that not fetter the agricultural use? Because you're actually constructing on new agricultural land, well, on what is existing zoned agricultural land. Also, with regards to the vineyard, and I know that the advice was that it doesn't necessarily have to be included for consideration. However, my understanding for agricultural zoning is that that there is you're allowed to have a residence if there is a viable agricultural use. Now, potentially, if a person has a block of land with no building on it and puts 2 pumpkin patches in it, does that mean that it's agricultural use? So basically what I'm asking is, do we need to actually ensure that the vineyard is a viable business opportunity in order to allow the building of a residence?
Thank you. Through. Yes, to you.
Through you, Mayor, it's a rural resource zone, it's not an agriculture zone.
I see.
So the threshold for reliance upon is not there.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Mayor, a statement and a question, I suppose. It is, I do understand that the people of Franklin are very passionate about their landscape values.
Yes.
And it is disappointing that the council doesn't have the answers to those questions, because we're only now asking those questions through the land use project. And had there been work done over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, it may well be that this development would not have been allowed in that zone, but you know, we cannot see into the future because we don't know what that development will look like. So that's more a statement. So it's recognising some of the angst. Look, it is a big house, but I do think it's compliant, and that's a council advice, so it is what it is. I would love to put a condition on the DA that the vineyard be developed and that the rural resource land be used, but I've been told by council officers that I can't be so inclined, and so I won't be moving that motion. But yeah, it is potentially a great opportunity for Franklin to have an asset like that. The point of clarification I am interested in, though, is that noting the rural resource land and that a single dwelling is a discretionary item, and that an additional dwelling for the purpose of a visitor accommodation is also an opportunity on that, a legal opportunity on that land. So my understanding from the DA is that the existing house is going to be converted into accommodation, and that will then allow the block effectively not to have a residence on it, which will allow a new residence to be built, and I sort of get that. And I get that the ancillary property next to the main residence would be allowable under the sort of granny flat type rules, if you want to call it that. But I'm just interested in the visitor accommodation, because reading the interpretation of that in the rules, and I know examples can be very difficult in these things, but it gives quite quite unusual examples of what a accommodation might be, and it says a backpackers hostel, a bed and breakfast establishment, which this is clearly not because they're not living there with their guests, camping and caravan park, holiday cabin, holiday unit, motel, overnight camping area, residential hotel and service departments. Can I just have your officer interpretation that the front house does actually fit within that sort of strange collection of tourist accommodations? Thank you.
You may. Through to you, Director.
Through you, Mayor.
Yep.
Well, you can answer, Mayor, if you like.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just add that that's the broad definition of visitor accommodation. The use table goes on to limit the visitor accommodation to backpackers hostel, bed and breakfast establishment, camping and caravan park, holiday cabin, overnight camping or seasonal workers accommodation in the rural resource zone. The description of the proposal is the visitor accommodation will be located in the existing residence fronting the Huon Highway. The visitor accommodation will be self-contained, with the upper level providing 131 square metres of living area. The lower level provides parking for one vehicle, which is effectively 18 square metres. Therefore, the best fit use class in visitor accommodation with the qualification holiday cabin. So that's a discretionary use within that rural zone. So,
Thank you. Yes, you have a question or a... I do. Right.
Thank you, Mayor. So I understand that there's a soil, water and management plan recommended in the recommendation. I want to know how effective the soil, water and management plans are, because it's all very well to have the plan, but if they're not monitored and if there's no follow-up, and I can use Oates' Bridge as an example, that there was, I'm sure, a soil, water and management plan. However, with the heavy rain event in mid-August, I understand that things happened, but there has been a huge impact on the water quality in the Mountain River. And so, therefore, I would like to recommend that the recommendation here, the motion reads point 3F, prior to the commencement of site works and prior to the lodgement of a building or plumbing application, a soil and water management plan, and then on to second paragraph, a site inspection by council is to be arranged by the landowner of the implemented plan prior to, and I would like to include during and after, so that the council inspects prior to as well as during and after. Is that possible?
Okay, through to you. No, not to you.
so through you, Mayor, that is possible. It can either be through an amendment accepted by the mover and the seconder with the agreement of the council, or it can be through a formal amendment.
Okay. We had Councillor Armstrong and Councillor O'Neill. Do you agree to that to be amended?
Have you got any?
Can I?
Yep.
Have you got any idea of what extra cost that would be, or?
No idea of extra cost.
No. Okay. Yes. So, yes, Councillor Tim?
I would imagine that it would be at the cost of the developer, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I suppose that's what he was meaning, what the cost actually was.
That's my point, is we're putting extra cost on to developers. Look, it doesn't sound too difficult, so yes, I'm happy to support that.
Yes. Okay, Councillor.
Just a question of clarification. What is the benefit actually of a soil and water management plan being conducted before, during, and after? I'm not sure how that actually applies. So just a point of clarification.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. So the point is that it's all very well to have a plan, but if that plan is not being implemented, and if it's not monitored, we don't know if it's not being implemented.
Yep.
And then after, to make sure that that there hasn't been any detrimental effects,
Yep.
which is what the purpose of the Soil and Water and Management Plan is.
Okay, right, so your wording would be then, would you like to read that again?
Thank you. So this is for the recommendation 10.004/23.
Yep.
That point 3
Yep,
F,
Yep.
second paragraph, a site inspection by council is to be arranged by the landowner of the implemented plan prior to, during and after the commencement, well, after the work on site as required by council.
okay, thank you. You happy with that?
Through you, Mayor, subject to you confirming
Yep.
with Councillor Armstrong.
Yep.
That is also consistent with F, which talks about the plan must be maintained by the landowner during construction works.
Yep. Okay, are you happy?
Sorry, through you, Mayor. I think that is pretty much a basic requirement anyway, isn't it, Matt? Like when you're building, you would have soil testing and everything anyhow, wouldn't you, like to test all the...
You would have the soil water management plan, but that's not the soil testing. This is to ensure that you haven't got excess runoff and water pollution, soil runoff during the construction period.
Which would lapse after the construction
correct.
period. So it would only be for that short time whilst it was being built.
Correct.
Would it be totally necessary? Do you think? I'm not sure that it would be totally necessary. I would think that would be something that could be managed reasonably well if it's just for a short period of time during construction. If it's going to be, you know, obviously the cost of the project is fairly non-minimal anyway, but I don't know whether that's going to be a big inconvenience for somebody. I mean, I'm happy to say yes, I can, but I'm not sure of the benefit of actually having it, given that it would be for a short amount of time. But because we have soil testing, that measures the soil and the acidity and everything else. If it's just a matter of runoff and flooding, I would imagine that a good builder would be able to cope with that reasonably well.
So are you accepting?
I don't know.
Make a statement or, yep, all right. Yep, yeah, all right. Well, yes, yeah, I mean, yeah, we have to remember, yes, are we, yeah.
So I guess at the end of the day, it isn't really going to make a difference whether I say yes or no. I mean, if the majority think that that should happen, then I'm happy to say that should happen. But in my mind, it would be something that could be managed anyway. So if it needs to be in there to satisfy our requirement that isn't in there, then yes, it should be.
No, it's, yes.
So through you, Mayor, just for the opportunity of some clarification, the difference by adding it means that it's a responsibility of the builder and developer to arrange those appointments with council rather than leave it for council to wonder whether building works are being undertaken and whether we go on site inspections. So it may actually be a benefit to the council.
And council would go on and inspect anyway in various stages, wouldn't they?
They wouldn't be inspecting from a planning perspective.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Well, let's just do that then. But
So
also-
you accept?
Yes, I'm accepting.
All right.
So that was a long-winded acceptance, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But, can I just ask another question also? While I'm
Well,
here.
we're just, do you also accept?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah, I'll accept it.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so now we've accepted for that to go in. Yes?
So just going back to that holiday unit accommodation business that we were just discussing, did you say there was just one car parking space? Two car parking spaces?
One car parking space underneath.
Just one car parking space for the 3 bedrooms?
No,
The front hub. So how many bedrooms is the one parking space for?
2.
Oh, so it's just a family. Okay, thank you.
So there's a parking space in a garage underneath.
There's too many houses
There's a
on this block,
parking
I'm
space
confused.
outside as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Yeah, I'm cool. Thank you.
Okay, yes, like,
Thank you, Mayor. Two things. I think that Councillor Campbell-Smith has a good point about the distance to the offset with the triple garage. I'd like to propose that be increased to 15 metres. And the other question is point 8B, prior to issuing the occupancy permit, you have to have the change of use of the existing building to visitor accommodation. And then it's got, or any other approved use under the thing. I'm not quite sure why that's there. But I wondered why it's prior to the issuing of the occupancy permit rather than commencement of the work.
Okay. Through you, General Manager, to the Director. Yep.
Through you, Mayor, the occupancy is the time that it will actually commence as a use. So, whilst you can construct, it's the use which is the part that we're aiming for.
I guess my concern is, I mean, if it's already built and then it falls through the conversion to visitor accommodation, where do we stand? Or is that just an automatic? Is that going to be completely automatic, the change of building class?
Through you, Mayor,
Yep.
they'll have a Part 5 agreement, and there's potential demolition which might come as part of that.
Right.
We need to make sure through our provisions that we're not creating multiple houses.
Yes,
by
that's
itself.
right. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. Okay, so I guess, as I understand it, the existing building will automatically, with this Part 5 agreement, be converted to visitor accommodation. That's a fait accompli. Okay.
Through the granting of the permit and the issue
For the
of
granting
Part 5
permit.
agreement.
Okay, so that's all right. So I just go back to, I guess, requesting the mover and seconder if they would like to add a clause in to move the triple garage away from that boundary by, I mean, I do take into account that there's been a little bit of friction between the neighbours at this point, and that setback is in the code supposed to be 50 metres, and it's down to 7.5, which I think's quite a lot less than 50. So I think that moving that away from the boundary would be a good move.
Through you, General Manager, before I ask if that would be accepted, is that acceptable?
It's very difficult to say, but in my view, it would be in the range of acceptable.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I will now go back to Councillor Armstrong and Councillor O'Neill. Are you happy to amend from 7.5? Is that right? Is that?
It's doubling it.
Yep.
And just as a point of clarification, that just moves it a little bit closer to the house. It's not actually getting in the way of the house in any way, as far
Okay,
as I see it.
thank you. Okay, back to, yes, Councillor O'Neill?
Yep, I probably couldn't accept that because I don't want to be playing God to what their plans are and what they want to do, and it's a big investment for them. So, and I can't picture the site, so I don't think I can go against the recommendation.
Okay.
And I think boundaries are adjusted quite regularly, in my opinion.
Yep, thank you. Okay, Councillor Armstrong? It doesn't matter now that he's not, okay. So you don't,
Can
yeah.
I ask a question in regard to that setback though? Like, is it a common thing to disregard what is accepted as the setback and just have setbacks that don't apply to the 50 metre at all. So why do we have a 50 metre setback for garage and whatnot if we can just put them at 7.5 or none or 12? Why is that? Should that not adhere to the law as it's written in the legislation anyway, when designs and plans are being built, drawn?
Through you.
Sorry, is that a
General
complicated one?
What, yep. Is that, no?
Through you, Mayor, I suppose that goes back to the authors of the planning scheme when they determined that a 50 metre setback was suitable for rural resource land. We have significant challenges in the Huon Valley that a lot of our land that's owned rural resource is not necessarily 50 metres wide, let alone having the ability to meet those setbacks. So, yeah.
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 Okay. All right.
Yes, it's
so,
a...
yeah, well, it hasn't been accepted.
Yeah, it has been accepted, but it's just a very, like you're putting in this quite complicated development application and you've got a garage that's only 7.5 metres back when there's clearly a lot of land to use for other things. It just comes across as being quite bizarre that they wouldn't accommodate a bigger setback, given that they do have space to do it. But if, it's fine. Yep, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to move an amendment to add that in, to increase it to 15.
So you'll like to move an
amendment to the recommendation to increase the side offset to the triple garage to 15 metres.
Right. Okay. Do I have someone to second? Is that? Yep.
Through you, Mayor, the amendment would basically be the current motion with the condition 11, the side setback for the triple garage be extended to 15 metres from the boundary.
All right. Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Yes. Councillor Campbell-Smith. Okay, so I open that now for discussion. Pardon? To Paul? Yep.
I think I've pretty much said it all. I mean, if you read through the recommendation and there's been an attempt to centralise the house and the ancillary dwelling because of the 50 metre setback, but the outbuilding triple garage, I think, was just pushed pretty much up against the boundary, or not a boundary, but against the easement there, and I think it should be meeting the same conditions pretty much as the others. Obviously, it can't be completely centralised because the house is in the way, but I think an extra 7.5 metres makes a big difference, especially in rural sort of setting. I think it also makes the triple garage combine more with the house and ancillary dwelling so that you've got a cluster of buildings rather than a separate building over on the boundary.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, my view is, I mean, this application is already pushing the envelope with respect to what's allowed on rural resource. So I think we've got to be cautious about setting precedents as well. And if we're saying, you know, you can have a outbuilding within 7.5 metres, despite the fact there is a significant amount of room in which to move that, and at least show some consideration to the neighbours, and the fact that 10 representations have been received against this particular application. It seems a small concession to make as a planning authority to meet some of the issues that have been raised. And as Paul said, at the moment, this is a massive house. That choice has been made, so there's no reason why the applicant should then force the garage up against his neighbour's boundary against the requirements of the planning scheme. The whole thing could have been moved a little bit further across, or it could have been a courtyard type arrangement with the the triple garage closer to the house. That's my view. And just one other further question. I mean, is there a definition anywhere in the planning scheme of what a holiday cabin comprises? I mean, the existing dwelling is actually 131 square metres. I mean, that doesn't seem like a cabin in my you know, in normal definitions. So I'm just concerned that we're setting precedent for sort of open slather on some of these types of things in rural resource.
I'm like the director would say, that it's part of what is in the planning. That is what it reads, and that's how it reads. So unless you've got...
Through you, Mayor, there's no particular definition that I could find of holiday cabin. The only definition that I could find anywhere on the internet was a very broad definition, so it wasn't based on size. It was basically a dwelling that was used for the purposes of visitor accommodation, people coming in and staying. So it was certainly very broad, and there's nothing that I could find that said that it should be something which is small. Bearing in mind that this is really only a 2-bedroom house when all said and done.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question about the lane, which I'd like to get to when we have the substantive motion, if I will be allowed to do that. But on the issue of the setback, I have 2 points. One, I note, and I'm just looking at this on this map at the moment, the neighbour's house is that small box about halfway up. That is probably about 30 metres, would be my guess, from where the garage is going to be. So it's just a point. Another point, the block's quite narrow. It's only 100 odd metres wide anyway, so there's not a lot of wiggle room. But I suppose the 2 questions that come to my mind is, one, I didn't see any representation specifically mentioning the offset as such. A lot of stuff about it being a big house and not in keeping, and but we can't consider that because that is allowable. So I don't think there was a specific representation on offset. But is there any way, Mayor, through you, that we could actually almost say, we can give the developer, and I don't want to call this a developer, it's a person building a house. Let's be up front with this. It's not some large industrial organisation. So the people building the house, is there any way that we can say to them, look, council will approve it if you agree to moving it 15 metres, rather than us saying no and then going to the planning appeals and so forth? If they come back and say, yeah, no, we're happy to move it, we push it through. Do we have that ability to negotiate?
Through to you, yeah. Through to you.
Through you, Mayor, no, we don't. Council has to make the decision, and if it goes on appeal, then that's where the negotiation part comes out. So any resolution that would come, because this has come from council, would have to come back to council to resolve.
What a shame we can't be nice to each other.
Thank you. Okay.
But
Yep.
can I just respond to that briefly? We are approving it, just saying, can we have a little bit more room down the side of the boundary?
Okay. All right. So, do you want a closing?
Just with regard to what Councillor Jessup mentioned about representations, there were a number of representations about the general appearance from the street, and I think that the massing of the buildings more together as a group would lessen the impact. I mean, a triple garage is a big thing in itself, so that sort of tucks it closer to the house, and I don't think there's a big disadvantage from the developer's point of view, and although the house of the neighbour is down the block a little bit, I mean it's not just the house it's the whole use of the land that's and in a rural setup, that's what you expect. You expect to have buildings away from the boundary, and that's why it's stipulated as 50 metres. It's it's to keep that atmosphere of a house in a fairly big open rural sort of space, and not have buildings up against boundaries.
Okay. right, well, I'll put the motion, no, amended motion, amendment. So I vote on that, and then do I have to go back? Yep, okay. So I put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. We have Councillor Thorpe, Armstrong, Jessup, Temby, Camber-Smith and Gibson. And against Doyle and O'Neill, and that motion has been won. Thank you. So I don't have to go back now?
You go back to the substantive motion.
Yep, okay. Right. So back to Armstrong and O'Neill. Do I ask Councillor O'Neill?
You just simply go back to debate.
Okay, so back to, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. The question I have, and through you, Mayor, probably to Mr Grimsey as well, that there's an ongoing concern about water management on this block, and it is steep, and it does fall down the hill towards the centre of Franklin. And my understanding from this, the representations, is that there has been some events, but I don't think they were just normal runoff events. I think there was a catastrophic event with the dam. But my concern is that the road that's been built will actually channel the water towards that north-eastern boundary, I think it would be. And you made the comment to me earlier out of council that there is a water management plan, but that seems only to refer to the house and buildings. It doesn't actually refer to how the shaping of the land is going to change. And the engineering diagrams on the road really didn't specify any water management concern, or didn't even consider water management. So I'm just wondering how I could add an amendment that there be a, that the engineering plans for the road be considered for their risk to inundation to the neighbour, because my understanding is that we, in our approval, we can't approve something that's going to flow water into the neighbour's property. So I think we need to think about that management. And again, all we can do is protect ourselves by asking the landowner to to take due care with that, and I haven't seen that due care in their documentation. So I'm asking for advice, Mayor, of how I could add that if needed.
Okay, through to you, General Manager.
Through you, Mayor, I've got some potential idea on some wording. I just need to see where it would fit.
Yep, okay. Can you just hold a moment? And
I'll wait to see where it fits.
yep, thank you.
So through you, Mayor, there would be an opportunity to add a dot point to condition 5, paragraph D, which starts off for stormwater discharge and detention for the development show. And wording that could be included is methods to reduce concentration of water emitting onto include methods to reduce concentration of water concentrating from the road onto adjoining land.
I'd much more actually get the market and put it, Mr. Grimsby, I'd be happy to use that word. I'd be happy to add them in.
Okay. So, Councillor Armstrong
Same process.
and Councillor O'Neill, are you happy to accept that? Yes? Yes?
Yep, no worries with that at
Yes.
all. Thank you.
Yes, you are? Okay.
Point of order, quick point of order, Mayor. Are we not now discussing the amended motion? So we shouldn't be talking to asking for
No.
No.
The amendment
we're
has
already
closed.
done
We're
that.
back to
We've
the
gone back to
substantive.
the original.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it doesn't, their motion would come to substantive.
That's what I thought, yeah, I thought that the amendment became the motion.
Yeah. This is another. Yeah. Okay, hang on a moment. All right. Can you please let Councillor Camber-Smith know that the process is what the process that we've just done is correct.
Through you, Mayor, the original motion was moved by Armstrong and O'Neill. Whilst it's been amended, it's still the motion moved by them originally.
Yeah, so it's correct. So, okay. Did Toby, did you have your, yes, yep.
Yeah. Oh, I was on the whole time.
Yeah.
I just have a question in regards to point 9, where it states that the outbuildings cannot be used for residential use. Does residential use include visitor accommodation?
Through to you. Yep.
Slightly digressed, but no, it doesn't.
Okay. All right. So we have the adding in to 5. What number?
5, paragraph D.
Yep. 5, paragraph D.
Include methods to reduce concentration of water from the road emitting onto adjoining land.
Okay. All right. Is everybody happy with that? Do we want to move and vote on that? Okay. All those in favour? No? No? We have. Oh, you want close? Yep.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, they did.
I think we need to just be aware and probably say to everybody, this has been a very difficult, complicated development application. And although we're discussing lots of points, in relevance to it, people just should be aware that there are lots of things that these people do need to apply themselves to within the permit and the requirements handed to them by whichever legislation they need to abide by. So it is quite complicated for them to apply themselves to this as well.
That's right. Thank you. Okay. So, all those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried. Is that correct? Amended? Or just the motion? Just the motion? All right. Yeah, wow. Well done, everyone. That was good debate. So what are we up to now? I wish to advise that the council is no longer acting as a planning authority as at 7:07. Thank you. 11, general reports. Are there any councillors that are tabling their activities tonight?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Yes.
I will email that basically I attended. I will email them shortly, but basically I've mentioned one activity. Apart from the standard workshops, I thought I'd also declare that I did attend the Franklin Vision workshop because I think councillors need to be quite clear what of those activities they attended. And it was a cosy group, unfortunately, but it was very enlightening to hear the views of ratepayers about the vision for the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Anybody like to speak to their activities? Yes, Councillor Camber-Smith?
Yes, briefly. Thank you, Mayor. I have mentioned some. Also, following on from Mark, I attended the Mountain River Drop-In Community Vision event for the 3 hours, which was lovely actually, and the casual and informal setting, I think, and the fact that we were serving up sausages was helpful. We had, I think, another 7 vision surveys filled in at the time, as well as a sort of general chat with Ron and Lisa about issues people had with respect to the valley. I also attended the NRM working group meeting, which was very useful. met with the new Hue and Roadkill Prevention Group that's set up in Jeeveston and Dover. Went down to Castle Forbes Bay to chat with residents about some of their concerns and attended 2 waste resource recovery briefings as well.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Temby.
I have mentioned a couple, and I will forward a more detailed one via email if I may. But particularly I'd like to point out the one that I've most recently participated in, which was the Huon Valley Food Hub workshop, and it was attended by, I don't know, 50 people, and the energy at that workshop was amazing, and there's a huge amount of interest in the opportunity to encourage greater resilience as well as a sharing culture of food.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of opportunity for community development through that process, and I'd like to congratulate all of the organisers.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. We didn't have a cosy turnout at Signet. We had a fairly good turnout at Signet for our meeting. But I'd like to know how come Jenny got a sausage sizzle and we didn't.
Yeah. You had a nice bit of tea there as well, you must admit. Yeah, so any others that, no? Okay. So, recommendation 11.002/23. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the General Manager's reports and minutes for the period 1st to the 31st of January 2023 be received and noted? Councillor Armstrong, and seconded by Councillor Camber-Smith. Do you wish to speak? No? Okay. Is there any other questions? Or yes, Councillor Temby? No, we're only accepting, you can, isn't it? Yeah, it's the yes. So, oh, yeah, okay, yep.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have 3 questions. The first is the General Manager Operational Report, page 9, states a representative is to attend the Regional Climate Change Initiative meeting in early February to gain an understanding of work currently underway at a regional level and how the Huon Valley can best make use of and contribute to this work. Did someone attend, and will there be a report to councillors?
Yes, through to you, General Manager.
Director.
Yep, through to the Director.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor Temby. Yes, the Acting Manager of Environmental Services did attend the RCCI meeting. Yes, all such meetings are reported through the GM's operational report at a minimum, if not through a report to the General Meeting of Council. The highlight for this one that will be in the General Manager's report next month, if you want a sneak peek, is that there's been good progress made. It's been a long game, but good progress made in the adaptation planning pilot. So Glenorchy and Hobart have led that, and that program is now being rolled out. So assistance being offered to all other councils in the region if we want to get on board with a regionally relevant adaptation plan.
Thank you. That's very timely with our adaptation strategy coming along. Question 2, thanks for your report from the General Manager on Council's current activities to address climate change. Can we organise to revisit how we monitor and measure success to ensure we are reaching the outcome objectives? For example, on page 11, 1.3.2, prioritise low emissions intensity when selecting new fleet vehicles, yet our purchasing and payment control policy was updated in May 2021 and did not include low emissions fleet targets.
Through to you, General Manager, to the Director. Yep.
Through you, Mayor. So Yeah, absolutely. There's an opportunity to revisit those items. I'd love to. We've got the second part of that of the mitigation, the climate change mitigation plan as well. Adaptation plan. So there's absolutely an opportunity to do more and better with these. We've declared a climate emergency. With regards to that particular one, it was noted that that was the attempt that was made through that policy. We've also got a light vehicle policy, which is due for renewal right now, and that's the appropriate policy to have emission intensity targets through that policy. So there's always another opportunity.
Yeah, just wait a moment. We've got some more clarification.
Yes,
Yeah.
through you, Mayor, just to add that the code relating to tenders is going to be reviewed this year with the development of a procurement policy. So the procurement policy will also pick up things like climate change considerations, procurement associated with local culture as identified in the RAP. So those principles will certainly be picked up within that review this year.
Thank you, Director. And I have my final question, if
Yes.
I may.
Yes.
Thanks for your meeting resolution implementation status report on page 18 of 59. Motion 13.05/22 states in part that we work with Sustainable Timbers Tasmania to recognise and manage strategically important forest areas and understand the mechanisms that currently exist and how through these frameworks we can promote these important areas. When do you plan to schedule a meeting, and will all councillors be invited to participate?
Okay. Yep. Through you, General Manager, to the Director, if I may, please.
You, Mayor. The meeting hasn't yet been scheduled with STT. It's in my court to do so. The intent was to conduct that with council officers and STT staff in the first instance and report that back to councillors. If that then develops into further opportunity to get councillors engaged, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, do I have any other? Councillor Armstrong, do you want to close? Okay. So, I ask, as there's no councillors speak against the motion, then I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors, and the motion is carried. Okay. General Manager, would you like to advise on the workshops that have been held?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We had 2 workshops over the past month, and that includes on the 1st of February, consultants Deloitte attended the workshop and discussed the development of the Council's risk management framework, identification of risks and Council risk appetites. On the 8th of February, we had Taswater briefing re the Geeveston Outfall project, where representatives from Taswater attended to provide a presentation and lead discussion regarding the Geeveston project. And finally, the food resilience. So work is underway for the development of the Huon Valley Food Resilience Strategy, an extension piece of work to the current Huon Valley Food Hub project. The session was joined by local consultants Mountain Ash Insights, who ran through a discussion with elected members to understand the current issues, challenges and opportunities that relate across the food system to inform and guide the development of the strategy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, 13.1, questions taken on notice. There was 2 councillor questions taken on notice at January's meeting. As previously mentioned, these questions and responses can be found on the website and will be included in the minutes. 13.2, questions without notice. Councillors, is there any questions without notice? Yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Thanks, Mayor. Regarding the response in 13.1 to my previous question about notices of intent, it didn't really answer my principal concerns. I would like to ask the General Manager if we've actually received a notice of intent from STT for Coop KDO 45E on Mount Tonga Taboo in the 30 days prior to harvesting. We haven't actually had an answer to that particular question, whether we received that notice of intent or not. I also asked whether those notices of intent are actually available to public or councillors on request, and if not, why would we not have access to those? And lastly, I mean, if we are unable to find the specific KDO 45E notice, what should we conclude from that? Should we conclude that none was issued? Can we assume that our document management system was adequate and that we definitely didn't receive one, or is there a chance it's got lost in the system?
Okay, thank you. I'll pass that through to yourself.
Yeah, look, we did a search and no notice was found. In regards to that one that you've noted, I guess on your second question, STT provide the information for our operational purposes, not for us to be the conduit to communicate that information. So I think if you see as benefit to receive that information, then maybe it's, approach STT. Look, I'm not going to say our systems are perfect, but I'd say they're adequate. And so, look, taking it at face value, we haven't received it, is largely what we could gauge from our review.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Councillor Jessup.
Mayor, I'll just find it. I have three, but a couple of them are sort of short. I'll start with the long one. Through you, Mayor, I'd like a quick update on the Jobs Hub. I noticed that we are in the process of allocating $200,000 in the budget papers, but we've not had any progress reports of detail, and since I asked the General Manager some time ago. I note this payment is to establish the organisation, develop a 3-year strategy and prepare a 12-month implementation plan and budget. So 2 parts to this question. Can we get a quick update on how the progress is going, but also if the GM, or through you, Mayor, if the GM could think of some way of giving us a quarterly update on just in his report or the relevant officer's report, just so we can keep abreast of where it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Through to you, General Manager.
Need help as well. Thanks for the question, and look, the board has met several times now and progressing nicely. I think what is going to help us move at a little bit faster pace is the recent success in recruiting an executive officer, and that person's hit the ground only in the last couple of weeks. So up until now, we've relied upon the goodwill of us and the Canberra Council to help resource and get things moving, which we have. We've got the workforce plan engagement out to KPMG, and they're doing some work to, I guess, prepare us for what will be the information that feeds in and gets us that 3-year strategy, allows us to do that annual work plan or implementation plan and create some budgets. The funding tool creates milestones and limits, I guess, the risk of us not delivering to the outcomes that the state government and ultimately us and Canberra Council want to see out of this vehicle. I think maybe the best opportunity for us is to include something in the General Manager's operational report that allows you some insight into the progress made, and I've got a meeting with the board tomorrow, and I'm sure they'd be happy to share something on a regular basis to keep everyone informed about what's going on.
Yes.
Yep.
Part B.
Can we just add to that? Yep.
Sorry, through you, Mayor, just an opportunity to add there is a requirement for the board now that they're up and running to start providing those quarterly reports to the council.
Yep.
I may have been aware of that, Mr. Grimsey. Mayor, second one, again, much quicker. I note the GM's response to my question about the organic waste processing phase 1 report. In a subsequent discussion I had with the GM, he confirmed that the final report, which is phase 2, will have additional costing data. which was a topic of great interest for the councillors. However, there is a really strong level of community interest in waste, and particularly in value adding, if you want to call it that, like composting the waste. And given that I suspect in the budget process we will have to allocate an increase in rates that may be directly attributable to the cost of waste, I'd again ask that, if possible, to release a stage 1 report so councillors can actually start engaging with the constituents about the value of this project, because I think we all found it quite a valuable project. And I don't recall there was anything that needed to be redacted from the report. I don't think there was anything commercial in confidence in that report, but we just can't use it to encourage the community to get on board. Thank you. Yeah.
Through to you, General Manager. Is that all through to the Director?
I think we've largely agreed that we can send it out. It's just that there will be some gaps, potentially, that people will have responses that won't be able to be closed out until we get to that stage 2, phase 2 report, which again we were looking to prevent those questions. So putting it out at the same time was to help that. But if it's the will of councillors to get it out early, then happy to do so.
Would you like to speak to that, Director?
Just to echo that, I mean, I've spoken to the General Manager about it. The decision was that given the significant gaps were to, and the interest was around the cost, and we feel that that's where the majority of questions will come from. That was why the decision to hold it back, given that they're a matter of weeks apart. But no problem. There's nothing commercial in confidence about it. We can put it out there. It'll be hot on its heels. Will be version 2, which will answer probably 90% of the questions.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So can we hang off a minute, because Council? Yeah. No. Off you go. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions are good, General Manager. I love
questions.
Okay. And finally, a question on recruitment processes. I'm absolutely supportive of organisations developing their staff through the use of internal acting opportunities. And I think that's an important tool in organisational change as well. However, the filling of permanent positions through internal advertising and appointment can be a process that undermines confidence in the recruitment process, in equity and in fairness. I thank the General Manager for providing me some information outside of the meeting. And in summary, basically from August 21 to December 22, I think you told me that there was 41 positions recruited, 11 of these through internal advertising, and approximately 6 officers and 5 more managerial leadership roles, coordinator roles. I note the council policy allows the recruitment of the recruiting manager to recruit internally if there's deemed to be sufficient internal candidates, and I won't clearly go into the individual positions that you were talking about, but you gave me some confidence that there were strong pools and strong candidates in that. The General Manager has, as I said, informed me that there was high quality candidates. I suppose at a governance level, just to make me sleep easier at night, I'm wondering if the General Manager might consider if there's a way of reporting on the number of internal only advertised position on an annual basis to it, just so we can track that. I would be anxious about that getting too out of control, because then people will criticise us for being too internally focused, I suppose. But I suppose it's a question, but if you can consider that. After you, Mayor, thank you.
I think it's very easy for us to share that information in our quarterly report. There's no secret about what we're doing. And to be honest, in the current market, the work we've done in being able to attract great internal candidates that fill these resource vacancies, I think is great testament to what we've been able to attract in the past. So I think it's a really good story for us. From an equity position, look, I mean, they are advertised, so we don't go and tap people on the shoulder in that internal recruitment. So largely we go through an internal recruitment process like we would if we were going externally. So they make application and go through the rigours of putting their submission and application together. So it's not a, oh, Mark, we like you, come and have a chat and we put you in the role. It is very much a case of, Mark, you put your application in and we'll consider it. And look, we've had instances where some of the team putting in applications just haven't met the requirements, and we have gone through and then advertised and gone and attracted externally. So I think the process we've got values that skill, knowledge and experience that we have already in our organisation. It's a great retention tool. I would hate to think that we've overlooked the opportunity to support people as we've trained them up and prepared them. And culturally, you know, the people that are with us, we know really well. We know they fit, and we know, you know, their gaps, and we're able to work with them and get them operating at a high performing level. So.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Temmie.
Thank you, Mayor. Just your response, General Manager, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Camber-Smith's question. So it is disturbing that no notice was found of the that you were not necessarily informed of within the 30-day requirement. And also with regards to Sustainable Timbers Tasmania information being provided just for operational purposes, I direct your attention to the motion, which is 13.05/22, amended by Councillor Thorpe and seconded by Councillor Burgess, that, and Part D, Huon Valley Council officially engage with Sustainable Timbers Tasmania to request to be registered as a formal stakeholder of its operations in the Huon Valley municipal area. So as a formal stakeholder, I would assume that we would be working more closely with, rather than just being an operational matter. So I'd just like to point that out.
Yeah, I think just for clarity, I'm not suggesting that we aren't already a stakeholder, and I know that they do respect, and I've been and had meetings with STT, and I know that they're looking to work with us on a number of fronts and a number of levels. When they provide correspondence to us, though, I don't see it as our position to then forward on that correspondence. We're not a conduit versus receiving it for operational reasons, or, you know, for informing us, not for them being a conduit to get that information out, unless they ask us to do that, which that's certainly not what they provide the notice for.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions tonight? Okay, we'll move on. You're right. Do you want? No. 13.3, councillor notices of motion. Neil? 15.006/23, future of local government review, option paper. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Camber-Smith, a seconder. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Camber-Smith, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think this is such an important discussion and consultation issue for councils, and I suspect that a huge amount of residents aren't quite aware of the potential large ramifications that could come out of this future of local government review. I know we've spoken to the Minister for Local Government recently, Nick Street, and he's given quite a lot of reassurance, which I found very very reassuring. Try not to repeat myself. But there is still the spectre of, you know, forced amalgamations and a reduced numbers of councillors, perhaps not a bad thing. A reduced number of councils, again, perhaps not a bad thing. But it is something that I urge all residents and councillors to get involved in and to follow closely. I think the fact that we're putting in a submission and we're discussing it at council level is excellent. I do have a few things I'd just like to bring up, and I have already emailed councillors, do you want me to go through each one of those things?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, alrighty. In section 3, where we talk about the future role for local government, it asks us which of the roles are likely to be increasing in the future. We've put facilitator or partner. I also think our role as an advocate to other levels of government is definitely going to be increased and ought to be added in to that section. Also, a little bit further under section 3 on page 2, it says assuming councils have access to the right resources and capability, there are other things we should be doing. And I wonder if we could add something in there about public housing and community transport. Again, it would have to be something that others would need to agree.
Do you want to we probably should discuss each one, and then we can decide whether that's what.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could be a bit long-winded. Alrighty. Well, what do people think about? Do I just need to ask my seconder?
No, we're just discussing. Work through. Yep. So your first one was
To add advocate as one of the roles that councils will become increasingly involved in, as well as facilitator or partner.
So
it's a very first question in the paper. In the option, in the future, no, in the paper that Matt's written for us that we're recommending for submission. So so as our submission, it says which of the 4 core roles of councils need more emphasis in the future and why? Now we've said facilitator and I'd just like to add advocate, as I think that will become increasingly important. Exactly, that's right.
Yeah. So we can add. Yep. We can add that.
Anything that you like, mate.
Okay. All right. So do we agree that to add that in as in the area? All right. Okay. The next one then.
This one's probably a bit more contentious. The second page of our draft submission says if councils had access to the right resources and capability, are there services that you think councils could be more involved in, and why? And I think things that increasingly we're becoming involved in just because we are at the moment the provider of last resort, and because there are sort of some emerging inequities. I think perhaps there's a role for councils in the provision of housing or affordable housing or public housing, and in developing community transport or on-demand transport or integrated transport solutions.
So which section?
That will be the first line of page 2.
Yep.
In the submission.
Yep.
I think that, sure, it's great because, it's saying if we've got resources and capability, so I don't see why not.
Okay. Any other?
Any objections?
Yeah. Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
I feel like we do have already a lot of these services that access, that a lot of people that don't have normal access to transportation do have access. I feel like perhaps they just don't know where they can find these things. And I think there's a lot of community groups that will actually provide transport to certain individuals that need it. There's actually a lot of groups, for instance, CTAC provides services, and there's disability support services, and then there's private carers that take people as well. And I think it does exist, but I think the accessibility might be the problem sometimes as well. Public transport would be ideal, but that won't happen because that's a state issue, and that won't happen to the population demands that it comes to us. But the point that Councillor Campbell-Smith is making is valid. though, but I think there are a lot of services that are here already. Thank you, Mayor.
I also, I did see in the Eel News this week, and I'm no longer sit on the board, but Bendigo Bank, I think they allocated to the car that takes people to, I think it was to about $93,000 over the next couple of years. So they're also providing a bit of a service there for people that normally couldn't get to appointments and that. So, yes, Councillor Jessup.
Just supporting just supporting the comment. More and more we've been asked to look at issues of welfare and community well-being, and there's no doubt that housing is a significant stressor for the community. Transport's more complicated in a way for me, but housing, we definitely have a role in terms of land use and land release. So I'd support that, but I'm also just a little bit related to that, and it could be in the box on the bottom of page 2, or it was prompted by the comment, it is so noted that council should not be held responsible for what the state and federal government responsibilities. I wonder, should we raise the question in either of those boxes that should there be things that we are told that we shouldn't be involved with? And there's examples of councils building dams to support industry on the east coast and things like that. I get the feeling that we're being asked to do a whole heap of stuff, but maybe state government should be saying, well, ratepayers shouldn't be getting involved in doing certain things. But yeah.
I think that might come up in the charter element. Yeah, yeah.
All right, so.
Can I ask a quick question of Councillor Cameron-Smith?
Yes, you can.
Excuse me, did you say public transport or alternative transport systems?
Yeah, I mean, I've put in writing here housing and community transport options, but I think that we could add in that there, transport systems as well, because we know more than anybody else how our residents want to move around and the mobility restrictions that
we know the problems.
we have in place.
Well, we have some wording here.
Okay.
Yep.
Through you, Mayor, it's just simply adding a paragraph with access to the right resources. Council could be more involved in housing and community transport options and systems.
Yep, sounds like great. Thank you.
Okay. Is everybody happy with that? Yeah?
Okay.
Yes?
I'm sorry, this is taking up a bit of time.
Yep.
Also, under section 5, the third item in that table, thinking about Tasmania now and how it might change, what are the most important things to consider if we were to redraw our council boundaries? I think that we need to ensure that the revenue raising potential through rates is appropriate to the services that we have to provide. So, for instance, if we were combined, for instance, with another rural regional area, we would just be sort of almost exacerbating our problems. That we'd still have a small resident base and a very large road network to maintain. So, I just think we need to make sure there's the revenue matches the resources that we're going to be required to provide.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Sort of a counter, and and this is section 5, boundaries, and I take the point about 30 years ago, but one of the concerns I have is if they do amalgamate or force amalgamation, that we don't lose the unique characters of the various councils.
Yeah.
And yes, our character is a problem because it means that we don't have a large rate base.
Yeah.
But I'd hate to think that we were banged in with, say, a next door council that loves doing greenfield developments and putting up houses all over the place, because that would be, that's one of the things that came up in Franklin quite strongly at the vision meeting, that's the last thing that we want. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be differentially compensated for things like our road network, and that's, I think the funding's a different thing, but I'd hate in any amalgamation that we lose the unique culture of the existing councils.
And you are like, I mean, we are preempting when you said you'd hate in an amalgamation.
If there was an
Thank you,
amalgamation,
thank you.
Yeah. Because that's obviously, we're asked to consider boundaries, so I could reframe that to say, I'd hate to think that in any reconsideration of boundaries that we don't suddenly become a large urban.
Thank you.
Or the bottom end of a large urban
Yep,
council.
okay.
Perhaps that could
So is there any wording there that you have for that? Yeah?
Through you, Mayor, not what Councillor Jessup raised, although it is raised later on,
Yeah.
that it shouldn't simply be, there's nothing wrong with a rural council being separate from an urban council, so that is
So protecting
stated as a principle. Yeah.
the unique culture of the various councils.
So it appears a couple of times through the submission talking about retention of local connected communities of interest, functional economic areas and accessibility by the community. If council would be happy, I can always add the unique character in there as well. And the other wording was simply as Councillor Canberra-Smith put it, we also need to ensure that revenue raising potential matches the needs of the region.
And I sort of added as well, which also helps to meet some of Councillor Jessup's concerns, that there's appropriate and equitable representation for all localities. So that's all comes under that same.
Yep. Thank you, yes. And
Yeah, okay. Continuing down, sorry. Option 2.4, that's right down quite a lot further, so excuse me while I find it. Have you got something you want to raise in between that?
Page 3, so is that before yours or?
On page 3?
Progressively down or?
The next, this is going progressively down.
Make it easier.
Yeah. There's a big gap.
Yeah.
So this is page 7.
Yeah, all right.
Option 2.4.
Yeah.
Establish systems and methods.
Wait a minute. Is it easier for you?
Through you, Mayor, definitely easier if we go down.
I am going down. Yeah, I am going.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you raised that.
Yes,
Sorry.
yeah, yes. Okay,
Apologies.
Councillor Temby.
Yes, because
Yes.
I've got something on page 3.
Sorry. Yes.
I hope it's worthwhile after all that.
Yeah.
So in any structural reform process, how do we manage the very different needs and circumstances of rural and urban communities? I guess, and I don't know whether this is the right wording or not, but it's something along the lines of that, you know, our standards, just because we're equated to rural zoning, should not be a substandard, whether it be road quality or water quality or anything. You know, like I'm just saying that rural should not be equate to substandard. So yeah, I'm not sure.
So in that last bit of that on page 3, you mean? Yeah, okay. Yes, yep, through
You, Mayor, the possibility of including in that rural areas should not be subject to substandard levels of service compared to urban areas?
Yep. Thank you. Yep, okay. All right, so then we go on to, back to you, Councillor Canberra-Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 7, option 2.4. Establish systems and methods to support equitable and comprehensive representation of communities. And again, this is, you know, being a fairly geographically dispersed municipality, our townships have got quite different characters, and I wonder if we could put something in there about, I know we've talked in here about wards and engagement hubs, but, you know, maybe make the point that we should have, you know, each of those sort of townships should have some say, whether it be through a sort of precinct level or a township forum type level that can feed up through the structure their own sort of concerns and requirements, some sort of process for doing that.
Through you, General Manager, to the Director.
Through you, Mayor, we could just put simply provision of smaller representative community forums could be helpful at precinct or township level. as suggested.
Yep.
That's fine.
Okay. Working through.
Yeah, my next one is 6.1, so I don't know if anybody's got anything prior.
Right, okay. If you'd like to do that, Councillor Gibson.
About the planning authority, yes. I don't support the removal of the complex DAs going elsewhere. I think it'd be better.
Microphone. Yep.
Yeah, 5.1A. I don't support the removal of the complicated, complex DAs to another body. I'd much prefer to see it stay within council, and for council staff and councillors to get expert support, expert knowledge from a centralised source. The reason being, and Matthew's already alluded to this, it's very difficult to decide what is a complex DA and what isn't, and so you're going to it's going to get I don't know. I think it's going to get problematic. It's much better if the system stays the same, but it's recognised that some very complex DAs will require expert knowledge, and we bring that in.
Thank you, Councillor
That's my
Gibson.
thought.
Have you got some wording for that one through you, Director?
Through you, Mayor, subject to obviously discussion with councillors.
Yep.
What Councillor Gibson's effectively proposing is that one is not support. Approval should be retained in council, and council should have access to central expertise support through a complex application.
Is there any? No? Okay. That's, yeah.
What's that?
No, complex 5.1.
That's right, 5.1A, yeah.
There's A?
Yeah, but we want to change it to not supporting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yep. All right, yes, Councillor.
I'm sorry, Mr Grimsey, I'm going to ask you to go backwards a bit. Under Priority Reform Outcome 2, Option 2.1, which is mandated pre-election
Can we deal with this one first?
Oh, sorry, I
Yeah,
thought we'd
yeah,
finished.
no.
I thought we'd moved on.
No. So, yep.
So are we happy with Councillor Gibson's proposal?
Are we happy with Councillor Gibson's? Yep, yep, yes we are. Right, so you want to go backwards, Councillor Jessup?
Yes, I spent half my life going backwards, Mayor. So option 2.1, which is the improved councillor training framework. I bravo to the point of the paper about the federal and state politicians not requiring any compulsory training, and that might be a better world if they did. But yeah, my concern here is that councillors invest a huge amount of time for a very limited recompense, and this is not our full-time job. We actually, most of us have other jobs. So it will become limiting to the range and diversity of people who run for local government if we're putting onerous training requirements. And the term provide compulsory, ongoing, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that worries me a little bit. Induction training, absolutely support. But I suppose the wording, Matt, is something around, however, this must be balanced against the other roles of councillors and the fact that there is a diverse range of people who are councillors and they have many responsibilities in their communities, including making a living, but let's not put that there.
Yep.
Some of that might be addressed in 2.2, but I take the point.
And for me, it's not just about money, it's about just capacity.
Time,
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, Councillor Temby.
So 2.1 says providing brief but mandatory pre-election candidate awareness training. I participated in that training, and I do think that it's important that councillors know what they're in for and that they've got a certain basic level of understanding. And I don't agree with Councillor Jessup.
Okay. Yes, you can clarify it. Yep.
Yes, through you, Mayor, just to clarify an understanding the limit of access. Certainly the point that Councillor Canberra-Smith, what you've raised potentially fits better in 2.2.
Oh, Councillor Temby. No?
No, raised by Councillor Canberra-Smith.
Oh, right.
Just pointed out that what was raised
Ah,
probably fits
yes.
better in 2.2.
Yep.
Low remuneration may limit those who participate in the democratic process. I'm not sure it can be said that just some pre-induction training would actually extend that. Would be
This isn't pre-induction, there's 2 paragraphs in that one. One, provide a brief but mandatory pre-election,
okay.
but then the second bit, provide ongoing compulsory professional development training opportunities, continuing improvement professionalism of elected representatives. I'm not enrolling in a university degree in local government, so that's a bit that concerns me, that councillors should be provided with opportunities to learn and develop. Those who choose not to, and it's reflected in their performance, will be dealt with either by the electorate or be dealt with by performance management.
Yep.
It doesn't say it's mandatory, the ongoing. It is just accessible.
Compulsory.
The second, provide compulsory ongoing.
Okay.
However,
No wiggle room.
it also says accessible. So accessible means that it can be done in an online, available at your leisure. And we did agree, as we signed up to be councillors, we agreed to ongoing professional development as part of our signing up as councillors.
I don't agree.
Wait, just, okay, yep. Just let's bring it back in a little bit. So, yeah, I know, yep, I realise that. I'm just pausing it for a moment. Yes.
Just
Councillor.
maybe the word supporting rather than. I think if councillors are quite strongly supported to do professional development, that sort of well, it gives some financial recompense for the time potentially, and
yeah, okay.
Just a thought.
Have you got some? Yep. Through to you, Director.
Through you, Mayor, I have just come to the councillors should be strongly supported to undertake professional development. But I was working on some words for Councillor Jessup.
It's about balance and not overcooking it, because all you'll end up with retirees and people who are maybe rich enough to actually have a place in on the side. And
Yeah.
we would hate that to be the case.
Thank you. Right.
Could we change it to support in principle? Would that help?
I just think it needs to be balanced with the fact that we want a diverse group of councillors who have other roles and responsibilities in their lives.
And some are going to need more professional development than others.
And some enjoy the.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially if they're.
Yep, that's right.
supported to do it.
I think strongly encourage might be an aspect, because if I was required to do mandatory training, that would take away from the time I allocate to council to actually deal with constituent matters, for example.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I also have another point for 2.1 when Matt's
Yep.
ready.
Through you, Director.
Through you, Mayor. How's about councillors should be strongly encouraged to undertake professional development, and compulsory development needs to be balanced to ensure that councillors have the time to participate as a councillor and a private citizen.
Happy with that? Is everyone happy with that one? Okay, and you've got something at 2 before we go on.
Yeah, same option 2.1 is I'm not supportive of the comment that someone should only be able to stand for mayor or deputy mayor if they've already completed a full term as councillor, because I think that sort of limits the role of democracy in a way. And I mean, if we look at our council, we would only have had 2 candidates eligible for those 2 positions, so I'm just not supportive of that ending statement.
Yeah, didn't think about that. There was, there's only, yeah.
Would
what about mayor but not deputy mayor? Because deputy mayor is a sort of a training position as it is, whereas I think, you know, some experience as mayor, I'm sure Sally would agree, is not as a councillor before you step into that role is not a bad thing.
I still think limiting eligibility against the basic eligibility to be a candidate it is a preventative measure to being an active participant in the democratic process as a candidate. And those limits also don't apply to state or federal MPs either. So there's no mandate in having previous experience to be a candidate. I'm supportive that there should be opportunities for training to be able to fulfil these positions, but I think if there's a requirement that you need to fulfil beyond being a resident of the area, a certain age, eligible to vote, those sort of things may restrict that a little bit in having equal and diverse representation in an election campaign, for example, is important.
And you could end up with a spill where all councillors don't re-stand.
Yeah. Yeah.
After the Board of Inquiry, that's what we had.
Yeah.
I agree with what Toby's saying as well.
Yep. Okay. So you'd like that paragraph removed? Can we do? Is that? Yep. Okay. Yep. Removed. Right. Councillor Camber-Smith.
Okay.
We're back to you.
I was against having that removed, but that's okay. I think I'm
probably
in the minority, so.
Do we vote on? Yep. Do we want to take a vote on that? Who agrees with removing the requirements to? Yeah. So that's majority. So okay, Camber-Smith, Councillor Camber-Smith, can we move on to your next one, please?
Sure. I've got to scroll down to it now. Option 6.1. Where are we? 6.1. It's page 13. Require councils to collaborate with others in their region and with state government on regional strategies for specific agreed issues. We've put not support. I'm not certain why we wouldn't collaborate or be willing to collaborate on those particular issues. Perhaps you can explain your thinking.
Yes, through to you, Director.
Through you, Mayor. This is more on the concept of require councils to collaborate. If you look at a regional context, such as Huon Valley participating in the Southern Tasmanian Councils Authority, if you look at any of their election wishes and desires, we're at the end of the line. Nobody relies upon us for the provision of infrastructure for them to get to and from somewhere. So quite often the priorities for the Southern Tasmanian region have been things like the Bridgewater Bridge, which has some benefit to the Huon Valley, but it could mean that if you're concentrating on regional priorities all the time, the Huon Valley is going to potentially significantly miss out, which is demonstrated continuously at elections.
Yep.
I guess it depends on the size of the region.
Yeah.
that you're talking within, but take the point.
Yes, Councillor Gibson.
With all these talk about regions, I feel like I haven't anywhere seen mention of the geography of Tasmania and the complexity of the geography, and I think it actually could be even earlier in this document, but I can't remember where it was. But I think somewhere we should be talking about boundaries being relating to geography rather than to regions or to demographics. So there was a couple of places, I didn't put a point, I wrote it down, but I didn't say where it was, where it should be mentioned.
Yeah, okay. We're at the moment 6.1
because it does pertain to that to a certain extent. But I think early on there was another point that it was even more appropriate to. Where it was talking about amalgamations, or I can't remember, or boundary adjustments. Anyway.
We might come across it.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it.
So yours is that at the moment, you wanted to know why it wasn't supported.
Yeah, it was a discussion point rather than a...
Yep.
you know,
So are you happy for that not support?
I wonder what others think.
Yes, you can.
I'd be inclined to add support in principle and make a comment that we would not want it to be a requirement, but a more regular thing, especially if we've added advocacy points on public transport and that sort of thing. There actually are benefits to us, you know, engaging with the Kingborough municipality, for example, because those transport corridors, you know, are often shared.
Of which we do, you know. Yeah.
But in this sense, with their regional strategies, like I think there should be we should support that in principle, but not having a requirement to actually have to do that. Yeah.
So it's a support with a, yep, yes,
So
Director.
through you, Mayor, the last sentence in the box on the comments, collaboration with other councils should as a matter of principle be supported, but it's not clear why this must be a prescriptive requirement as proposed. It should be put at the top and then that just be supported in principle.
Yep. Okay. Yep. You're happy with that one? Okay, thank you. Next one.
My next one's 7.2. I don't know if anybody else has got anything prior to
No,
that.
they've not checked in.
Page 15, enhance public transparency of rating policy changes. We've said not support, and again, it's just a question really why we wouldn't support that.
Yes, Director, if you'd like to.
Yes, through you, Mayor. I suppose it's about enhance. So council has current rating policies and they're changed from time to time. They're changed through open council reports and resolutions. So it's just not quite clear, or to me put in the submission, why that's necessary in that form.
So it's just more admin and...
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially. The other part is that there's certainly some, and our audit panel has expressed it, that it's not the role of the audit panel to be reviewing the council's rates policy. That's not the role of an audit panel.
Okay, fair enough. I can see that there is a lot of confusion within the municipality about how rates change and you know, how the capital values or whatever they are, you know, lead to quite different changes in people's overall rates. Some people go up, some people go down. So I like the idea of being transparent about how all the rates are calculated, but
We
perhaps
are
not,
pretty.
yeah, perhaps
we-
not to
we
the
do.
prescriptive nature that this is
Yeah.
suggesting.
Yes.
Through you, Mayor, you could on that basis change it in support in principle because the comments still support that position.
Is everybody happy with a support in principle? Yeah, no no's? Okay, yes, that's
a bit from me.
Yep, okay.
Can I ask
Yes.
a question?
Yes.
There was at some point here there was talk of right, I just made a note. It's about rating, and maybe it hasn't come up yet, but I just thought we should mention the, you know, that Tasmanian councils often keep their rates very low because of the capacity of low income but asset-rich residents. Simple. Oh, we're out. Okay, thank you very much, General Manager.
So on the issue, should we be exploring smarter ways of allowing ratepayers to access that capital? You know, shared equity loans, for example, would be a tool, not necessarily one that I'd encourage. So we could put a comment to that effect, to say that different models need to be
we could simply
considered.
say that this is, you know, that we should be looking at ways of resolving this.
Yeah, because it's yeah.
So, is
Um,
everyone happy with that change to that one? or a comment to that one? Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah,
Just a
it's
comment?
a comment, really.
Through you,
Yep.
I'm just not clear of what the
Yep.
comment is.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yes? You can, yeah, you can.
Thank you, Mayor. When we had our, we discussed this, didn't we, at our, when we had our meeting at Kingborough about the rates? And I still think that we said, you know, we think the state should handle the rates, because there's a lot of, like, seriously though, there's a lot of pressure on local government to constantly review and change rates. There's a lot of money owed to local government. There's a lot of people that I don't think fairly pay the right amount of rates. You know, the asset rich, money poor, paying twice as much rates as somebody that's got money in the bank but not as many assets. You know, the equality is not quite where it should be, I think. I don't know what to do with rates, to be honest. I sit here and look at this and I don't think any of it sounds like it's how it should go. But it is legislation and something has to happen with it, I guess. I don't know what you do with it. But I think the system's not right, but I don't know how to fix the system.
Yeah.
I guess my proposal was to acknowledge this, that the capacity of low income but asset rich residents does limit our rating, and that we should be looking at solutions to that. So rather than trying to come up with a solution now,
Yeah.
which I think is difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Because,
I think
yeah.
we support a broad and wide-ranging review of different models for rating. I don't know.
Okay, and because, I mean, like, you're dealing, I mean, just because someone has property or money, I mean, you know, like, they've probably got that through hard work.
Oh, absolutely.
Or just inherited down the line.
So,
you don't really
yes,
know.
have you got some wording there, Director?
Through you, Mayor, I'm still struggling with the wording, which is
Yeah.
probably why I had
Yeah.
no comment in the first place, because
Sorry.
it looked like a simple response.
Yeah.
There's probably two ways that we could talk about it that have just been put forward. We need to acknowledge the capacity of low-income, asset-rich ratepayers may be low, and we support a broad and wide-ranging review of different models for rating. Does that cover?
To resolve this issue, I think.
Is there any other comment on that? Is everyone happy with that, or? Councillor Chambers-Smith, have you got some more? Oh!
Don't get too excited, Mayor.
Oh.
Thank you. 7.4, again going backwards, Matt. I think we've gone in far too weak with a no comment statement on this. Is it the diesel something other tax that we haven't had an increase to for a decade or something like that? This is consideration of increasing awareness of state grants commission distribution. I do not believe that local government gets anywhere near its fair share of revenue generation for the work that we do, and therefore not only I think 7.4 as an option is weak. So I'm saying not only should we be increasing the awareness, but we would be encouraging a far more equitable and indexed approach to supporting local government to provide the essential community services that it delivers.
That was last year's ALGA from every council in Australia.
Yeah.
We wanted to, our fair share.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is, yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we have something for that. Yes, just as he said. Yep, no worries. All right, so if everyone's happy with that, adding that to the comments, yes, okay. Do we have any more?
Well, I still haven't found the place to put in this, just mention of geographic rather than demographic boundary organisation, because I think as far as identity with an area and a locality and a community, the geographic, I mean, we know that in our council, just the boundary that the Huon River makes, you know, and how it affects the way communities work and the way councils work. So I think that should be in there somewhere, but is it 2.4, is it? Thanks, so maybe it is.
Award system may be of some benefit.
Yeah, that in there would be fine. Thank you.
So you would like
Something added in there.
along the lines of?
That it's recognised.
Microphone? It's on.
Yeah,
Microphone,
it's on.
Yep.
That it's recognised that the geography of an area is often more important than the demographics as far as community identity and this should be taken into account in terms of boundary, any considerations of boundary changes.
Is everybody happy with that? Is your microphone on?
So is the comment around geographical appropriation that boundaries be considered?
I don't know about appropriation, just the identity of
geographical identity of
yeah.
regions. Okay.
Yes, councillor. Yes.
So at risk of sounding daft, I don't really understand what you're saying.
So
do you mean as in boundary adjustments, or do you mean boundary as in extending our boundary to become Kingborough?
Yeah,
Right.
if the state government's looking at all of the councils and saying, well, we've got to get enough people into each council
Yeah.
to make it viable economically, I think that more important than that is to look at the geography of an area and see how people actually identify
Yep.
as a community, and so that
Well, clearly we are quite different to
that's right. We say it all the
Kingston, aren't
time.
we? Like
We
it's
say
a
it all
whole
the time.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
All right, okay. So is everyone happy with that? Yes? Do we have any others? Ooh, okay. So, Councillor Camber-Smith, do you have a closing? No. Okay. So, no one to speak against, no other questions, no other whatever. As there's no councillor to speak against the motion, then I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Agenda item number 15.007/23, Code of Conduct Review. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Gibson. And a seconder? Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Gibson, do you wish to speak?
Not really. I'm happy with that
Yep.
recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions or councillors to speak against? Yes. Councillor Jessup.
Thank you, Mayor. It's sort of a statement. We did a little bit of work on a statement of expectations earlier in the year, and we haven't finalised that in any way. However, the Code of Conduct is a more mechanistic process, but I think when I was talking to the officer, it was suggested that mid-year would be an opportunity to maybe review both documents at the one time and look at how we do that. So I'm just sort of asking council staff to consider that when that next comes up, and we do probably need to do some work on the statement of expectations.
Yep.
As
thank
well
you.
as that. Thank you.
Through to you, General Manager. That would be fine. Through to you, Director.
Yes, through you, Mayor. There's a review of the governance framework, which will be somewhere mid-year, which also takes into account the statement of expectations.
Thank you. Okay. So any other questions? No? Do you have any closing, councillor? Okay, so as there's no councillor speak against the motion, then I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Agenda item number 15.008/23, proposed motion for Australian Local Government Association 2023 General Assembly. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Gibson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Gibson, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I think local government bears the brunt of climate change effects, flood, fire and etc. And prevention is and preparedness is the absolute best way to minimise costs. So I think the federal government should come to the party and support it.
Thank you. Okay, do I have any other councillor to speak? Yes, councillor.
Mayor, I'm proposing an amendment of a minor type. The last paragraph, it says safeguard residents from threat. Can we either add and business or resident and ratepayers, or because I think it's not only residents copying the brunt of climate change, so I'm not sure what the best wording would be, Councillor Gibson, but maybe just residents and other ratepayers or something?
You can just change it to ratepayers. Residents are ratepayers.
Yeah, it's nice to distinguish a bit.
Yeah.
Or it could be community, and community can involve business community as well as visiting community.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose my focus is business because they are significant ratepayers as well.
Yep.
People, just safeguarding life and property. We don't.
I was going to say that. Just change it.
Avoid the issue altogether.
But a business isn't a person. Just to be pedantic.
They are.
Be-
They're people and property.
Are you talking about assets?
Yeah, just no debate, just come back through. So what would you like to do, Councillor Gibson?
Well, it's really for Councillor Jessup to say, but I would just remove the residents and say preemptively safeguard people and property.
Are you happy with that?
So yeah, that would be safeguard threat to people and property due to increased. Is that what you're saying?
Safeguard against, I guess, threats.
From?
Where is that camel that we're building?
Just hang on a moment. Safeguard against threat.
Yeah, that would work, wouldn't it?
Yeah? You happy with that?
Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson, are you happy with that? Okay. Do you wish to close? No? No? Did you have something, Toby? No? Okay, so can we reread that bit then? Thank you. Through Director.
Through you, Mayor. So the amendment is to paragraph B of the motion, that the motion that will be put to the National General Assembly would read, this National General Assembly calls on the Australian Government to provide financial support for council projects that preemptively safeguard against threat to life and property due to increasing severity and regularity for bushfires, flooding, drought, wind events and coastal erosion.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So as there's no councillor speak against the motion, then I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Agenda item 15.009/23, Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority Council representation. I refer councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Camber-Smith, a seconder. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Camber-Smith, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, excellent initiative. I wondered if I might make a small amendment to add a D, that the appointments that we plan to make be made public via council's normal communications channel. Otherwise, we've only talked about engagement being at the informed level. I think it'd be quite nice to make more of these things public.
You happy with D? Yep. Yep. Are you? You'll be happy to add that wording? Yep.
I second that.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought it was. It was Jenny. Yeah, you was seconded. Yeah. That's yeah. So you're happy to add? Is everyone happy for D? Yep. All right. Do I have? Okay. So now we need to. Do we? Yep. Yep. All that. Okay. So all those in favour of the motion. And I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors. And the motion is carried. So then we have to.
We need to move to calling for nominations.
Yep. So I'd like to call nominations for.
Firstly, the representative, then we'll do the substitute representative after.
Okay. So the representative. Can I nominate? Yep. I'd like to nominate.
Seems like you're declared elected, Mayor.
Thank you
for nominating.
Thank you.
That's the question.
Yep.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. What would be the role of a representative or a substitute representative? What would that involve?
To attend the forum and, yeah.
Yeah, which is where?
In Hobart.
Oh, is that all? So there's no flying involved?
No.
I'd be happy to be the other one. I'm serious.
The substitute representative. Yes, you'd like to nominate?
Yes, I'd like to nominate for the substitute representative.
Yep. Okay, so we have 2 representatives. Is that correct? Yep. So now we will vote.
Just give me a moment.
Just give him a moment. That's what the bowl's for. Yes, it wasn't M&Ms.
Do we have to vote, or can I just allow Jenny to do it if she wants?
Yep, you can withdraw.
You can, Mayor, because you know more about it than me.
Okay,
I was just putting my hand up because I thought nobody else would probably want to.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I
thank
feel
you.
a bit like I should. I was just saying not to you.
Okay.
But I'm happy for you to do it if you're okay.
Yeah, no, I'd like to do it actually. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. All
Councillor
right.
Canberra Smith is declared elected Mayor.
Okay, all right. So do I have to do anything with that? No. Okay, I can move on. Congratulations for being the substitute, Jenny. Agenda item 15.010/23, annual general meeting resolution downloading of development applications. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Move the motion? Yep. Councillor Gibson, a seconder. Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Gibson, do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, I've spoken to this before. It comes up annually, and we seem to annually get the same answer. I've been through it fairly thoroughly, and I support this recommendation. I think that in this day and age, if people want to keep a track of changes to DAs, there's ways to take screenshots of various pages, and it avoids the risk to council this way.
Thank you very much. Do any other comments on that? Yes, Councillor Canberra Smith.
Thanks, Mayor. I need masks. Yeah, just a question really about C bullet point 3. It says council obtained from applicants a specific authority consent for council to upload materials to the council's website. Do we actually have to do that? Because aren't we obliged to advertise?
Through the General Manager to the Director.
Through you, Mayor, our obligation to advertise is by placing the application on exhibition at effectively the Customer Service Centre. So there's not an obligation to advertise on the internet. So we use effectively an implied licence. However, the clarifications come back that we should actually get that from the applicant and make it clear.
Could we not add on to the form or the documentation that goes out to developers that we, as part of them filling that in, they give us an implied licence to display on the website, rather than having to do this, getting a consent? Because what if they say no?
Well, that's the difficulty of the copyright law. They have the right to say no. Yes.
Is any other? Councillor Gibson? No? Okay. Any other? No? So as there's no councillors speak against the motion, then I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Please. So we've got, yep, so okay, let's put our hands up for the minute again, please. So we've got Councillor O'Neill, Gibson, Doyle, Jessup and Temby. And against we have Councillor Camber-Smith, and no vote on Thorpe and, is that right? And, yep, and Armstrong. Okay. So the motion was carried, wasn't it? Yep. Okay. 15.011/23, Yawn Valley Food Hub and Food Resilience Strategy Update. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Yes, Councillor Temby, and a seconder, Councillor Camber-Smith. Councillor Temby, do you wish to speak to this?
I just think it's some good work being done. Particularly like to draw to everyone's attention the strategy we'll be introducing, which is point number 50, an emergent and innovative measurement framework known as the 6 Capitals Framework to consider the health and capacity across 6 assets: finance, manufactured, intellectual, human, social and natural, applying a social and environmental accounting approach against each of these assets. I think it's just an excellent way to be looking at decision-making towards the future, to effectively measure, monitor and evaluate social and environmental issues, not only with the food system, but with our decision-making moving forward, in particular in regards to climate change.
Thank you. Do we have any other? Yes, Councillor Gibson.
Just a question maybe through to the Director. I think might be an opportunity to do some proactive communication around this. I don't know in what way, but the more people we get involved at this stage, the better, and the more we talk about, what Council's doing, the better. So I don't know whether we should put something in the recommendation that's considered, or there's something.
I might go through you, General Manager, to the Director. Yep.
Through you, Mayor, I'm not sure we actually need to have something in the resolution, but we can certainly look at getting some more information out there publicly.
Yep.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other comments? I have one. In the latter part of last year, the Governor, Barbara Baker, and the Professor came to a presentation from Emily and Michelle for the Food Hub and Food Resilience Program, and were very impressed at the work they'd done. I mean, all levels of government are putting more pressure on local government to maintain and establish this resilience in our community. So I think that I agree. We need to be able to pump the chest more in this area, because the work that has been done is great. Yeah, it's excellent. That's what they've done there. So, yeah. Do I have any? Yes, councillor? Sorry, yes, you're right.
So I struggled with this at our workshop because I didn't actually understand what the Six Capitals framework had to do with food and resilience. And of course, we've missed out on the 12 months previous with the... I just wonder if we could simplify things a little bit for those that don't know about it. Maybe with regards to communication, could we just use simplistic words that people understand to get it across? So maybe we could do like a flyer with a little house and then put arrows with a farmer and arrows to something else. I know it's very primitive, but if a lot of people were to look at this, they wouldn't relate this to anything to do with food, sustainability, produce, localisation, community.
I think that in response, that they've done it in there is lots more, yes, that can be done. They have done it in every avenue that we do. It's linked to food and resilience in the community area, in down there with the eating with friends. It doesn't, like there's lots of different avenues that they do. But I take that on board, and I'm sure the director will nod that, yeah, that we can always do better, and thank you for that.
Well, sorry, Mayor, I don't think it's even better. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think just a different approach.
Yep, okay, all right.
Perhaps. I think they've done a really good job, but perhaps just a different approach.
Okay, through to you, Director.
Yes, through you, Mayor. It is a complicated concept.
Yeah.
Even I admit I struggle with the concept of the capitals. So certainly any promotion that we do, it will be in a plain English promotion.
Yeah. Okay, is there, yes, Councillor Hammersmith?
Just a quickie. I mean, I think this is a fabulous project, but it's in the nature of these grant-funded projects that it feels precarious in that it looks like the project funding runs out in 6 months' time, and it would be nice to know that we've got some sort of continuity there. I don't know if we know if there are other grants that we can apply for to ensure its continuance. I mean, it's just starting to really produce some practical initiatives like the food vouchers and all this sort of thing, which I think is a lovely concept. Have we got any confidence that we can continue to fund it through some mechanism?
Budget bids, I suppose.
So yes, through you, Mayor, it's not clear what grant funding will be available in the future. Certainly, part of the Food Hub and Resilience project is looking at some sort of an ongoing governance, which is outside of council, like a food resilience group or a food coalition, to do that. So council's role becomes supportive then, rather than the deliverer of it, and. Because that's the only way you're going to achieve the outcome is if it's actually adopted and run by the community. It certainly can't be run simply by council.
No, I did wonder if you could have like a food resilience working group or something where council just provides some oversight and facilitation, and community actually takes it on board and runs with it. So okay.
Councillor Temby.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just sort of reiterating that the workshop that we attended just recently with the Huon Valley Food Hub, with a huge amount of energy from the community, has been stimulated through these projects.
That's right.
And we're at this very stage now of actually having practical outcomes which are going to empower the community to take the things on board, and actually there are various activities that the community will start to take over, so that it's not council funding, it's more community looking after community and sharing and helping each other.
Okay, is there any other comments? No, you want a closing, or is that would you like a close?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's no council to speak against, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Agenda item 15.012/23, Huon Valley Marketing Strategy Performance and Evaluation Report. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Yes, Councillor Armstrong. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gibson. Yep. Yep, you've got a levy. Councillor Armstrong, do you like to speak to the motion? No? Thank you. Okay, do we have any other? Yes, Councillor Gibson?
Yeah, I thought this made interesting reading. It's pretty clear what, you know, the COVID dip.
Yeah.
And, but then very encouraging to see, you know, by December 2022 exceeding expectations and, yeah, I thought it was also interesting just the observation of, you know, New South Wales travellers into 22 just leaping up. And again, I think that's, you know, a lot of people keen to travel to Tasmania post-COVID, but it means that our brand is out there, and this is the place of choice. So, yeah, I think that it takes time to build a brand. And you know, when we first put this forward as a council way back then, we weren't quite sure how it would go, but I'm encouraged to see that it is building. And yeah, so I'm supportive. I don't have anything else to say.
While you're finding your page, I opened the official opening of the CMCA Caravan Park in Geefston on Tuesday, and I spoke to the holiday home people that were there. Every one of them told me, you know, how much they'd spent in the town, and we had one review come back through to council that they'd been here 12 years ago, came back, thought they'd come down for a couple of days, stayed for 6, couldn't believe the quality of the park in Geefston, went everywhere, Cygnet, but used that as their base, went further south, listed all the shops they'd been to and what they'd spent their money. So they say grey nomads don't spend money. They do spend money in the community. And there was the report that came back to counts that I brought back to Matt, to the director, was greatly received, because they were promoting the fact of not only do we have good areas in our municipality, we have good, you know, like facilities, but we also have a great visitor centre, like in Geefston, regardless what you need to call it. They reckon it's second to none in Australia. And these were world travellers too, they weren't just grey nomads. So we are doing well, and it is picking up, definitely. The Huon Valley is starting to find its feet, so it's good. So, yes, Councillor Jessup?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, a couple of comments, and I do thank the officer for preparing the report. I'm interested in the graphs are a bit selective, so I don't quite get the full picture here, but I'm certainly interested in the Greater Sydney graph there, that we clearly seem to have extended the shoulder of the season, and I think that's a really important marketing outcome for us, and obviously feeding on Mona and those sort of organisations. But so that's, I think more work needs to be done there. I don't think we should at all lose the reality, though, that Tasmanians travelling in Tasmania are still a very large part of our market, COVID or not COVID. That's, you know, internal tourism is actually important. So let's not forget about marketing ourselves to those people. I note that the vision, that the plan sort of ends in 22, and I'll put on notice that I don't like the brand vision. It's not a vision. It's a statement of procedure, and I'd love to think that we can work on that over the next, into there, and so really as a tourism experience, what do we want the Huon to be known as? A place of great scenic beauty, maybe. The other one is just on the metrics. Point 29, overall the Huon Valley visitor economy is growing faster rate than statewide visitor economy. I can't see the evidence for that in the document, so I'm just a word back to the General Manager to some extent is just be wary of unsubstantiated comments like that. But I would love to see down the track a good comparison of where we're spending our money and where we're getting the results. Just a table format or something like that down the track, but that's not for today. But I thank the officer for the report and the hard work that the one or two people in that section do, because it's not a massive marketing agency doing this work.
No, that's
Thank
right. Okay. Any other comments? No? Councillor Armstrong, do you have any closing remarks?
Not really about this. I think the intra-travel bug was probably the best economy booster.
Yeah.
For things, it has been a little while, and of course there's a certain financial bracket package that comes to Tasmania in the grey nomads, which is what. But we have done well to support our own state.
Yeah.
I did have a bit of a look at the website and the brand because I haven't looked at it. I must be honest, a couple of years ago I was a bit underwhelmed with it, but it is looking quite nice, and I think if we can add some more things on there, that will be quite positive. It's getting there. It's a little while, but we're getting there. People should just go on and have a bit of a look and see what they can find.
No worries, thank you. All right, so there's no other questions of that? Okay, so as there's no councillor speak against the motion, then I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Agenda item 16.004/23, financial report. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Move the motion? Councillor Thorpe, was it? No, Councillor Armstrong. Was it? Was it? Well, he needs to put it up a bit higher. Do I have a seconder? To Councillor Thorpe. Okay. Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Full analysis, please. A full analysis, please.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, no. Okay. Do I have any other councillors that have any questions or statements? Councillor Jessup?
Just a quick one for you to the GM. Are we actually accruing a value for the outstanding rates, or do we not accrue that? And at what rate do we add a fudge factor for how much we may or may not, or are we assuming 100% accrual in that?
No
Do you reckon?
factor there.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Thank you.
I'll refer the director.
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor. So how we account for rates is that when we do what we call the annual rate raise at the start of the year, we bring to account all the rates for the year. So even though they might be paid in 4 instalments during the course of the year, for accounting purposes we bring them to account on day one. So there's no accrual per se, they've already been brought to account. Which I might add, which might sound unusual, but it is kind of standard industry practice to do it that way.
No,
Yep.
when you issue an invoice to somebody, you would do it. So then, at what point do we say we're not going to recover that and turn a unpaid rate into a bad debt, or do we never do that?
We don't ever do that because under the Act, rate charges are a charge against the property. So we will recover those rates if and when the property is sold. So we don't raise any provisions for bad debts for rate debts.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Councillor Armstrong, would you like to have a close? No? No? Okay. As there's no councillor speak against the motion, then I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Agenda item 18.001/23, Community Engagement Summary Report on the Southport Toilet Refurbishment. Do I have, I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Camber-Smith, and a seconder? Councillor Jessup. Councillor Camber-Smith, do you wish to speak to this motion?
Only to say, I think it sounds like there was a very good engagement process and a big turnout. So well done.
Thank you. Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Gibson.
Just with regard to that, it seems like the only thing that was engaged with it was the finishes. Was there no discussion about the building itself?
Can I go through you, Director, to the GM, to the Director, please?
That's correct. That is the only element that was engaged on. It would have been nice to include some more detail. It wasn't, and we'll work on that for next time. That said, a lot of the engagement was around. So it would have been helpful to clarify to the community the limitations on the job. And the limitation on the job is that we are tied by climate change overlays. We cannot move that building. We're incredibly fortunate to have it in the location that it is. And so that was a big constraint. This is a renewal. It's done as part of asset renewal. And generally when we're doing asset renewal, we're often just going in and giving a paint, cleaning it up, whatever. We are actually this time really bringing this thing back to life, but with the constraint of it needs to stay in the current place or it's going.
Yeah.
So there was a missed opportunity that we acknowledge. We'll do better next time. That said, the community comments came through loud and clear around all those other elements, and it was well represented. And there was nothing in those broader comments that would change the actual refurbishment of building features.
There were a few comments about, why have we got three choices the same, or four, or whatever it was.
For the actual for the facade, you're saying? Yeah. Sorry, I'm talking about the actual services in the building. So the fit out and the putting DDA compliant bathrooms and that kind of stuff. It was good engagement. We could definitely have done better, and we will do better next time.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Thorpe.
I just have a question not directly related to the project, but the community engagement process.
Yeah.
There's quite a high turnout in this one. I'm just wondering if there's any lessons that the community engagement team may have taken in what went well here and how we apply that to other community engagement processes, because the population of Southport was incredibly exceeded by the turnout, so it'd be good to note that there should be a review process on what we did great here and how we apply that to other areas as well.
It's fair to say we'll be looking at successes and also the other lessons that Lockett's referred to as we go through
that's right.
post-implementation of it. So.
And we also need to realise that this has been happening. This has been a process that everybody wanted, so they would have jumped on it to be able to vote to get this done. So they were really keen and eager. We've been trying to do something at Southport now with these toilets, and the spot that we wanted we couldn't move, and there was lots of issues that created the length of time, like we said. So I think they were eager. So yeah, they were, yes.
A lot of the comments were from visitors too.
Yeah.
And it just shows the heavy use for the toilets.
Southport's a place upon itself, isn't it?
Through you, Mayor, I wanted to add to that as well. Part of the strategy was or a deliberate part, was to do it over the busy Christmas period, summer period, because of the usage there goes through the roof at that particular time.
Yeah.
So, just as the gentleman earlier said, it wasn't ideal to run a procurement process then. There's, business continues generally around the year. So we did it then. It was a deliberate thing. That is really what pumped up those numbers and gave us a representative sample, genuinely, of the different types of people that are using that place.
Yeah. Yes, councillor. No, you're right.
Sorry, 3 minutes. Can I just say?
Yeah.
I'm a bit concerned about option 2 being the selection. It's probably going to not weather all that well with timber. It might be susceptible to vandalism, and it might be difficult to keep clean on the outside, hosing dirt, dust and whatnot off it. Perhaps a different surface would have been a nice option as well. How did we choose options?
I can go back through to the director if that's okay. Yes.
Just the practicality of, it's nice, but the practicality of the timber, it does make me sort of wonder what will happen to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's not too many options for public buildings to make them too vandal-proof, but also nice at the same time. We looked at, within our cost constraints, what we could do to pretty up the facade, and those options are relatively limited, but relatively close in terms of what could happen to them via vandalism, the need for cleaning, etc. I don't think it'll be a material difference between maintaining each of them.
The other thing is too, I think that the community has waited for these to be done. I think they'll own them. They will take ownership of these, and they will appreciate the fact that they've got something better. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, Councillor Camber-Smith, have you got like to close? Okay. So no other comment and no one to speak against. So as there's no councillor to speak against the motion, then I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. And that's the motion carried. It is that time again to advise that council is about to go into closed. Council, thank you to those people that's still with us, who joined our gallery this evening, and those who took the time to watch the meeting online this evening. Thank you very much. The next ordinary meeting of council is on Wednesday the 29th of March. Right. The recommendation 19.007/23 is that the meeting is now closed to the public as at pursuant to Regulation 15 of the Meeting Procedure Regulations to discuss the following matters: confirmation of closed minutes, general reports, closed council, reports of the Greg Norris Memorial Health Scholarships 2023. I put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. Pardon? Oh, I didn't have that in there. Sorry. Sorry, that's me. I didn't write it in there. Can I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Jessup, and a second to Councillor Temby. So, do we have? We're still on. Do we, Councillor Jessup? Would you like a?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right. Okay. Yep. So, can I please put the motion? All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried in accordance with Huon Valley Council's audio recording of council meeting policy. Recording of the open session of the meeting ceased at 8:58. I adjourn the meeting for a short